In this video, I will be continuing on talking about the fifth stance and walking. Walking is doing a forward stride, one after the other, in a continuous repetitory fashion. And we all know that. But when you have these issues of the ataxic movements, the restrictive posture, walking becomes problematic. Even on those days where you're feeling pretty good, having a fairly decent day, you're walking along and you make these little stumbles and little trips. The issues that we're dealing with start to build up, and the walking again becomes problematic. And there's so much detail in all of the things that we've covered, all of the different aspects of controlling the posture, controlling the weight shift, the knee, the foot. It just becomes overwhelming up here trying to process it, trying to keep on top of everything to make your walking movements better, or any movements, any activities that you're involved with that require you to do these more complex movements. And of course, walking is a very complex movement. So how do you stay on top of those things? How do you do a little bit better with your walking and the other more complex movements that you would like to do? How do you do all that stuff without thinking about all these parts so much? Because when your mind is involved with all this processing of all those small parts, how everything goes together and works to make it supposedly better, make a smoother, more efficient movement. When your mind is overwhelmed with all of these details, all of these efficient, better movements, they go right out the window. They don't happen because you're trying to control them too much. You're doing too much thinking, and your body is being locked up with all of these issues that we've been talking about. So what you need to do with these things is process everything, work on all of these stepwise improving movement abilities that we've been covering in the video series and also extensively in the book. As you're learning how to use all that stuff, and as you're becoming more efficient with using it and not having to think about it so much, now you're on the path to where you can take those big blocks of information and crunch them down into focus points, where that focus point will give you all of the information you need that's in the background that you know you have to do. But this focus point says, okay, doing all that stuff, but this is the one thing you need to do that reminds you that's what I need to do. And I'm doing it by doing this one thing. So the focus points. You need to come up with words or very short phrases, like 2 or 3 words at the most. Those very short words, phrases to tell you exactly what it is you need to do. I don't care what the words are, as long as it makes sense to you and you're doing the exact thing you need to do. In this forward stride process and all through the other things that we've done, I've given you some little key focus words. I've used heavy foot quite a bit. I've used flat foot a lot. Stand on a foot. When we got into the fourth stance, it was stand on that flat foot and make it heavy by a complete transfer of weight onto that foot. All of that was building up to this, making that your go-to focus point. Now I have a couple more for you. Let me get back off this stool. So those first three focus points, the heavy foot, flat foot, stand on a foot, all of those are really saying the same thing. But in your mind, it may have a little bit of a different connotation of what you process to do it. But when you're walking, going back to having those problems, going back to the little bit of tripping and stuff you do, and this is especially important when you're trying to walk on some uneven surface or something that the carpet is high or maybe the grass, that type of thing. It's heavy, 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 heavy. And there's no reason to think about all this other stuff of how do I keep shoulders forward, knees bending, and all this postural stuff. Just focus on heavy. Push down and make that foot heavy. Heavy. Then if you're doing that, making it heavy, and you're noticing that, geez, when I do that, I'm falling back a little bit, well, that immediately tells you on your heel. You need to shift forward a little bit. So if you're using the heavy and everything is going fine, super, you're doing exactly what you need to do. Because as you push into this foot, making it heavy, you're transferring pressure, all of your body weight, to this one foot. And then as this knee comes up, it's free to move. You're doing everything just by ensuring that you do a complete transfer of body weight. Okay, that's the heavy, especially when you need to step over that little twig that's in the grass. Anytime you need to get this foot up a little bit higher, means you have to get this knee up a little bit higher. Heavy, which means push down into what? The flat foot, which is the next word. Flat, flat, flat. Whenever you're having a problem staying on that one foot, which means you're not making it flat, go to the flat. Make it flat. Feel the pressure evenly distributed throughout your entire foot. Flat. And at the same time, you're doing the heavy as well. Flat, flat, flat. So you're incorporating the heavy, but you're adding onto it, making it flat, which is correcting these small postural problems that you've been creating. So the heavy foot, flat foot, that works pretty good when you're not doing too much. In other words, when you're not out there walking, although it can be used and very effectively can be used when you're walking. But there's another one that I teach people and get them to process as they're walking, as they're using all of this stuff to walk, and that is stand on a foot. And what I mean by that is, as you're walking, just feel stand on a foot, stand on a foot. What exactly am I having them do with that? Well, in our normal stride, everybody, there's a point when we're coming through that stride and we get right here, this foot is momentarily flat, evenly distributed weight, if we're doing a complete transfer of body weight. And if we wanted to, we could stand right there. It's a very secure feeling, and it happens in every stride. So when you're walking, to make more sense of the heavy and flat foot, to complete the transfer of weight forward onto the foot you're moving onto, stand on the foot. And for this, I want you to feel like, as you're going through and taking these smaller strides, pause momentarily as you come midpoint through the stride. That foot is flat. That's where all of your body weight is moving onto that foot. This back foot, the toe is coming up off of the floor because you have transferred all of the pressure onto this foot. That pressure in that foot is moving from heel up towards the ball and toe areas, right? Well, as we come here, it's on the heel, and then it flattens as we continue to push ourselves forward. Stand on a foot, stand on a foot, stand on a foot. This is focusing on stand on a foot, meaning I have to transfer my body weight forward. And notice this foot back here is flexing. And what's that back foot doing in that forward stride? Pushing, of course, which is the next reminder word, the next focus word. When you're out there walking and everything's going pretty well, but many times when I'm walking, I'll start to feel like, man, I'm walking slow. Because we fall back into our old habits. And we won't have as much of a push from this back foot. We won't be flexing this foot as much. Our stride length will become a little bit shorter. And when you get lazy and tired, it'll become a little bit wider, and all of those things will be more problematic. So, focus point, push, 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 push. And you're only focusing on the pushing foot, the back foot there. In the stand on a foot, you're focusing on this front foot. Yes, and I told you not to focus on the front foot except this one time. Okay? Because you're not focusing where you're placing it. You're just focusing on the feeling of it being flat. You're actually pushing from the back foot, of course, to move yourself onto that, focusing on push, push, push. And as you're doing that, I want you to focus on the pressure going into the ball area and toes of that foot, and to feel that foot actually flex. Where the toes meet the foot, that's where this action is actually happening. Now, if you want to be technically correct with it, the toes are actually extending. As we flex our foot, the toes are actually extending on the foot. Feel that. Feel that action of your foot. Feel that push. And if you're having a little bit of a rough day, if you're feeling like you're a little bit slow, increase that push, and your stride length will gradually increase slightly, and your transfer of weight will improve, maybe significantly from what it was before. And when you're walking and you become a little bit tired, you will start to get a little bit clumsy, a little bit lazy, and you'll start tripping over the toe of your advancing foot. When you're starting to trip over your own feet, you need to push heavier down into the foot that you're using to support your body and to push it forward. No ifs, ands, or buts. The reason is this advancing foot is coming down too quick because you haven't transferred the body weight and you're getting lazy on the push. Remember, the only reason this foot comes down and hits sooner than it's supposed to is either a weight shift problem or a push problem. That's with a naturally occurring stride without any other anatomical or neurological defect going on. So, weight shift, and almost always it's that weight shift, which is also going to decrease the push because you didn't push enough pressure in there. So the two go tightly together. What's the other one? Give you four. Heavy, flat foot, stand on a foot, push. The other one is knee. Recall back where I said, repeatedly that the knee controls the foot. The knee lifts the foot, the knee places the foot. And to help you place these feet a little bit better, not by thinking about it, not by processing it up here where I want it to be put down, point this knee straight forward. As you're making your stride forward, point this knee straight forward. Do everything else exactly as you were, exactly as you're supposed to, exactly as I've just talked about, but feel push, 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 push that knee forward. Some people become confused with doing that. Some people feel they become awkward with it. And that happens because you're not comfortable with everything quite yet. And it seems to be like, man, this seems really odd when I'm saying push my knee, push my knee. Point your knee. Point, point, point. In other words, point this knee into the direction you want to move. We become lazy with our movements. People with these restrictive posture movement impairments, we become lazy with our movements because of all the problems we've talked about through all of this. We start to do less because we don't want to make ourselves worse. And remember, when you don't know what you're doing and you can't control this pressure on your feet, as you start to do more, that pressure moves more and there's the problem. So when we become lazy, it's saying that we're just allowing everything to go where it wants to go. And now we're trying to refine that and say, no, this is where you're supposed to go. We're retraining ourselves and trying to get that pressure and the body weight transferred to the one foot more centrally in that foot, more towards the middle. And we're trying to use that flexing foot to push us forward. Well, if you are lazy with your movements and you just let this knee go over here, well, there goes your body. If I'm coming towards you and I just let my knee flop out to the side, well, my stride length widens a little bit because that knee has over. Yes, many of you are going to say, but I can't control that. It does that. That's just the way I'm built. It's always done that, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I hear you. But I haven't met one person yet that I work with that hasn't been able to control that. It's just that you've been allowing that to happen by being lazy, put that in quotes, lazy with your movements of just putting up with it. But here, to help everything that we're working on, now it's knee. Point this knee forward. Point that knee forward. And as you do all this other stuff, the push, 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 heavy foot, flat foot, stand on the foot, push from the ball and toes of your foot, all of that stuff is going to just work a little bit better. Now, 5 points, heavy foot, flat foot, stand on a foot, push, balls and toes, and knee, push your knee, point your knee rather. When you're out there walking, doing your stuff, don't try to use all of those at the same time because you're just going to confuse yourself. Those all are reminding you to do the exact same thing. But in the beginning, just use one, maybe two of them at the most to try to stop the thinking. And as you're doing that, you must feel what you're doing. Feel the minor mistakes you make, feel the minor corrections you make, feel the good stuff, feel the bad stuff, everything in between, and learn how to make your own little focus points. Because everybody is going to feel like, oh yeah, I have to do this, or I have to imagine I'm doing this, or whatever, to do that same thing. I don't care. Do what works for you. That's the important part. Make it yours because it's your movement. But if you can focus down there, as we've just talked about, that's a good way to correct these problematic movements when you're out walking to get back on track and make things work a little bit better. Again, when you get starting to get tired when you're out there walking quite a distance rather, instead of stopping prematurely because you're having issues, decrease your stride length. Instead of taking the stride length out here, decrease it, because it's easier to control. And then you're able to relax more into it. On those days where I'm having a little bit of a problem, it's so easy to get back into old habits without recognizing what it is. But as you're out there walking, doing whatever, for that matter, but walking through the house, outside, whatever, when you first become aware of, this doesn't feel right, I'm having these issues, why? Stop and feel where these are, because many times these will have started to guard and you won't have recognized it until you stop, feel it, let it go. Another point, look at yourself in the mirror to see what your posture actually is. That could tell you a lot about why you're having some of the issues you're having. So when you're out there walking, moving, doing whatever, remind yourself, relax. Relax these hands. Get these shoulders to drop right down, especially as you're using all these 5 focus points in your walking. Because if you're trying to use those, and these are up here this way, it's not going to work very well. And you're going to come back and say, well, Doc was wrong. That doesn't work for me. I'm still having all those problems I was having. Yeah. You were up here. You were stiffened. Your posture was restricted and very limited to what it can do because of this guarding. So be aware of all that. Okay. Now, to help you practice on the pushing, and many of you need that, especially with the moderate impairments, that pushing concept just is a little bit arbitrary. It just can't quite get it. So a thing you can do is, shopping carts work great, especially when they're half full of groceries. They have some weight to them. You can get a chair on wheels and put a person in it and push them. Push anything that's heavy like that. Even a chair without wheels on a surface like this that pushes very easy. Something that gives you resistance where you have to get down and grunt a little bit to get that thing started and keep it moving. To feel that push from the ball and toes of that one foot. Something else that you can use is a treadmill. Treadmill not just for walking practice. In this practice, I don't want you to turn it on. I want you to push the belt without any power to it. To get that to push, you're going to have to maybe exaggerate your movements to get enough pushing pressure back to get that belt to start slipping, to start moving. You might have a little bit too much resistance in that system to where the belt won't slip much, but try it and push to move the belt under your own power and not having it on. That can help you as well. What you're trying to develop is a re-emergence of the sense of what this push actually is. And you're trying to teach yourself, this is where that pressure needs to be. This is how much pressure I need to push in there. this is what's possible. For those of you that have had a problem with your movements where you're had not been pushing much at all, it makes a big difference to re-familiarize yourself with the act of pushing to help you with not only just the pushing in your forward and side movements, but also the transfer of body weight, heavy foot, flat foot, stand on a foot, all that stuff of just being more active with creating that pressure, moving down at your feet, using those muscles a little bit more than what you had been. Those are just a couple of tips to help you with that forward stride. Help you when you're walking. Heavy foot, just push, 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 push. And that is especially when you're just kind of keeping those feet flat. Flat, 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 flat. It can mean the same thing, but notice I increased my stride length there just a little bit. Standing on the foot, I just want to momentarily feel that flat foot, flat foot, flat foot as I'm walking through the stride. I don't want to necessarily stop right there, but feel it to know that if I wanted to, I could stop right here and I'm good. That's what I want you to feel as you push your body through that flat foot or that stand on a foot feeling. The push, push, push from the flexing foot, pushing from the ball and toes area of your feet, and the knee, point the knee, point the knee, point the knee forward as you're walking. If you can incorporate those into your repertoire of simplification, they'll help you. If you can start playing the games of pushing things, heavier objects, to feel that push. Get on the treadmill and use that. Even with the power on, use that to do some of these exact same things. But also be aware that walking on the treadmill is different than walking on anything else. It's because there the tread is moving and you're trying to keep up with the tread. Everything else we walk on, it's not moving. So it's a little bit of a different sensation for us. And truthfully, for those of us with these restricted posture movement impairments, it can make a huge difference. So don't be embarrassed if, gosh, I'm walking just fine out wherever, but when I get on the treadmill, I have to hold on. What we have to do. It's different. I don't care what any naturally moving person will tell you, it's different. And our little problems that we have exemplify that difference. So make sure you hold on. But when you're holding on, what you want to be able to do there is to relax your hand, hold, throttle, adjust your fingers, get these arms relaxed, the shoulders relaxed. So you're not making it more of a problem. Try to work it to where you get through time of doing all this stuff to where you can actually take one hand off and still walk okay. It's going to be problematic for many of you, and it was for me for a long time. And there are still times if I'm having an off day, when I'm on that treadmill walking, I need to use both hands. So let's move on, and we'll go on to the next subject in the next video and work on this stuff. This is a big portion of what you wanted to be able to do. Walk better, move better, do more things. These 5 points will help you find your own and make it happen to the best of your ability. Use your imagination, keep your common sense, get it done.